Okay, we've waited just a few minutes. I only took the time to clean off my stencil and get the Emboss It off so I can use it nice and clean next time. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape and this lace. And I'm just pulling from one side to the other, straight up. And make sure you don't let the lace drop back on it, or the lace that's in your hand. Sometimes it might be good to have two people if you're doing a wall. And there we go. Turn that around so you can see it. You can see the rose pattern here in the leaves. Isn't it pretty? And just imagine if you did a powder room or something with this on all the cabinets. Really special effect. Let's go ahead and try it with the burlap. I'm just going to wash my hands real quick. Great. I just want to touch on a couple points before we start with our next finish, which is going to be the burlap. When you first start using the Emboss It, get yourself a couple of sample boards. Don't go into your kitchen and start doing it on your kitchen cabinets right off the bat, because it's a learning process and a learning curve, and it's going to take you a couple tries to get the feel of it and see how you like it and how you want to do it. And we suggest going to Habitat for Humanity or a Restore location around you, because then you can help your community and give back the money to the community, and you get your sample boards very inexpensively. And it's also nice to try it on different sizes. Like I'm doing it on a cabinet door. You might want to get a regular door like that goes to a room and do some big pieces to really get the idea of how to do it. And then when you go to your real job, whether it's in a kitchen or a bathroom or a door, you're going to feel comfortable because you've had some practice at it and you know the little techniques that you want to do and not do. But mainly what we've touched on is just, you know, lifting it up straight, not overworking it, not pushing it under the stencil or under the fabric, and lifting it off very cleanly are some of the best things you can do. I also wanted to show you a different technique here. We're going to lay the Emboss It on first and then press the burlap into it instead of pushing it through as we've done with the lace. And there's no end when you start thinking about what you could do with that. If you laid on a layer of Emboss It, you could press leaves into it and make a beautiful natural motif with leaves. You could use your rubber stamps and press some shapes into it that you have from rubber stamps. You could use cups and do circles. You could cut foam core or potatoes and make your own reliefs, make your own stamps. So there's really no limit to this product. It's so much fun, and the only problem I find with it is time, is having the time to do all the neat things you can do. So let's do the little different technique than we did last time. Last time we just taped our lace on, pushed the Emboss It through it, and after a few minutes lifted it off. And this time what I'm going to do is lay on the Emboss It and then press the burlap into it. I'm going to go ahead and continue to use my spatulas for the application, because for this I don't want a lot of brush strokes. I don't want that to compete with the texture that I have in my burlap, but it doesn't say you can't do it with brush strokes. That would be another finish you could do with the Emboss It, to lay it on thick and work through it with the brush to get that kind of effect. So no limit. And again, I'm going to be careful to try and do this with as few strokes as I can, because I really don't want to overwork it. I probably have about 2 strokes more than I wanted to, but we got it on. So it's fairly smooth. And then I'm just going to use this rough edge of the burlap up on the tape so it doesn't show, and just lay the rest of it on there. I'm going to use my other big spatula just to have a little bit of that texture pressed into it. I'm using a light touch because I don't want to smush the Emboss It all over. Gosh, with the popularity of burlap today, every time you get on Pinterest, there's new things with burlap. This just opens up a whole new area of fun crafting and decorative painting. And because I can see the Emboss It coming through, I know that I'm making good contact. Okay, and I'm just going to lift off very cleanly. I put a little bit too much here. That's when I went back over it and did more than I should have, and I knew it as I was doing it. But you can see right down in here where I didn't have as much, I've got a real clean cross-hatching from the fibers on the burlap. And just another thought while I've got this here. I've got a big thick coat of Emboss It on my burlap. And live dangerously and see what happens here. It didn't go down into the recessed areas, but I've still got a little bit of texture, and I like the way that looks on the edge. That could be really fun. So just imagine, you could even layer this with your Rustica Deluxe. You could do your crackle with it and get some real buildup with the product. Okay, so let me put this on the side. And I'm going to pull out a board here that they had at Vintage Market and Design headquarters, and somebody had already done the stencil with it, and you can see what it looks like. This one's completely dry now, and it's just kind of a creamy color, and I can see through it a little bit here and there, and it developed a little bit of crackle, which happens sometimes in New Mexico when we put things on thick because it dries so fast here. But what I'm going to do with this one is put some glaze and wax over it so you can see how beautifully this takes the color and works with your background. So I'll get those products and be right back. So we've got the board with the dry Emboss It in a stencil motif, and we're going to do a couple of the fun finishing products over it. We're going to do some dark umber wax on a portion of it. We're going to do some smoky bronze crowning touch on a portion of it, and we're going to get really wild and do some Midas Atelier glaze in the pretty gold color in another section, so you can see how this wonderful product takes up color. And I mentioned just a few minutes ago about don't go and do your kitchen for your first project with something like this. Work on a smaller sample board, go to Habitat for Humanity and get the boards to work on to practice. And also when you do your first piece of furniture, don't start on the front of the piece of furniture. I would use your waxes and your crowning touch and everything on the side first and the back. Get the hang of it and then work your way around the front. I've learned that the hard way. So we'll do the wax first. This is that luscious dark umber that I use every day of my life. And we've mentioned in the wax tutorial, but remember when you first buy the colored wax, you want to be sure and mix it up because all of these luscious earth pigments are sitting on the bottom of the tin, and you want to get those up and moved around so the whole thing looks like dark chocolate like this. And this is just as hard as wood once it dries, the Emboss It. So I'm just going to work some of my wax over that. And this board has a couple little scratches and so forth on it because it never was waxed or glazed or clear coated before. So I'm going to cover some of those up, make those go away too while I'm at it. And the colored wax is wonderful because it will fill in scratches on wood. I just used it today for a client and got rid of some scratches on a piece of furniture for him. And the longer you leave this colored wax on, the more color you're going to get out of it. So you can leave it on up to 72 hours. But for our purposes today for the video, we're just going to leave it on for just a minute and go ahead and rub it off. And what I like to use for the wax is a terry cloth. I'm going to get one that's not wet here. This one feels pretty good. There's my terry cloth.
Right.
and then the microfiber cloth. I caught it too. I'm proud of myself. And as we have talked about before, one of the biggest problems with wax is using too much and leaving too much on, because we're always going to clear coat. The wax is not a sealer, so we're just doing this for the effect that it's giving our Emboss It and our wood and painted finish, but it's not sealing it. What I'm going to do is rub that on and then let it sit for a few minutes, and it will be absorbed into the paint. Part of it will evaporate on the top, and then I'm going to take the rest off with buffing. But look how nicely that just tinted the stencil. So that's our dark umber wax. Then we're going to take one of my favorites here, the Smoky Bronze Crowning Touch. And the Crowning Touch has just a hint of metallic finish to it. The Emboss It is matte finish. It doesn't have any sparkle, so this will add just a little bit of sparkle and sheen to it. And the Crowning Touch has more pigment than the wax, so you're going to get more color on your Emboss It. And I'm going to use my towel that's a little bit more damp and just work that a little bit. And the fantastic part about this slightly metallic finish is you get a brushed metal look if you do a back and forth motion. And I want just a little bit more Crowning Touch on my Emboss It here. But you can see the difference between the two. The wax gives you a slight sheen and a little bit of color. The Crowning Touch has given us a lot more color, and you can see the way it catches the light, kind of a brush metal effect. And just think if you did that with one of the light taupe colors. I love all the light taupes and grays, and the Emboss It, and then that over it, it would be tone on tone, just gorgeous. So let's get wild here and use some gold metallic. And with the glaze, I again use a wet towel to manipulate it, not a dry towel, because I don't want to have dry lines, and I want to be able to move it around quickly. And I always do glazing in small batches, because if you get going on too big of an area, it dries ahead of you, and then you have trouble moving it around. So just do a little bit at a time so that you can manipulate it while it's still wet. That is a beautiful gold. And I'm just going to pat that a bit. Now work it into my other finishes here. You would do this on a piece with all three different finishes, but I just want you to be able to see how they differ with the look that you get. And I'm going to leave that with a brush stroke on the metallic, because that looks like a nice metal finish. And the Atelier Glaze again has more pigment than the wax, so you can see it's lessen the difference between the Emboss It and the dark background, so they kind of blend a little bit more, and I probably would even just put a little bit more there. But you can see the differences that and this is good to remember too when you're trying to decide on any of your chalk-based paint, what product you're going to put over it to enhance it. You can see the wax is very subtle, the Crowning Touch has the most pigment, and the glazes have like a medium amount of pigment, and you can get a lot of different effects. You can do the brushing or you can do the patting. And then what I'm going to do here is let these two dry, because I don't need to do anything else to them. The wax I'm going to let sit on here, and in about an hour I'm going to go back and buff it and get the excess off. It will keep the color on the Emboss It and take some of the color off the wood, and then I'm going to let all of this sit overnight and clear coat it, and that will seal it, and I don't have to worry about the finish. Have fun with it, it's great.